Before this became purely a true crime YouTube videos, I originally had it named Murder, Myth, and Mystery. I wanted to delve into all the different aspects of it, but then stuck with just the murder. And I figured since this is going to be my last show for the 2022 season, I thought I would end with some myths. Try something different. Welcome back. If you are a longtime viewer, if you're somebody new, welcome. My name's Sean, and I do a lot of true crime. I do other things a little bit, but mainly just true crime. It's the end of the year. I thought I would do something a little different and do some myth. Bear with me. I have a really nasty cold, and I'm stuffed up. But the show must go on, and I wanted to make sure that I did one last show for the year. You know, ghost stories or tall tales, fact or fiction, every state has their own urban legend, but I thought I'd stick with some of Nebraska's. Nebraska is normally known as a flyover state, but I feel that I've shown a lot of different true crimes that go on here that people throughout the country don't know about. Many times, an urban legend is based on some sort of fact, though it's been greatly distorted. Sometimes the origin of the myth is never known. Previously, I've spoke of the legends of Hummel Park in Omaha when I was doing some of the true crime that actually happened there. I threw in some of the legends, of the albinos and the hangings and things like that, that there's really no predominant history on. It's just something that's passed down through generations. Today I'm going to talk about other places that are not, well, I guess one's in Omaha. So the first one I'm going to do is Portal House, which is south of Omaha. It's in Papillion, Nebraska. Originally, it was a town of Portal and kind of disappeared. In most of the versions of the story, it happened in the early 1900s. One day, a well-liked teacher just kind of snapped and lost her temper with her class, took out an axe and cut their heads off. Then she placed their heads on the desks. In some versions, she didn't actually cut their heads off, but that just varies from person to person. But all the versions did say that she was wrought with grief, so she took a knife and cut out their heart. One by one, she would do this, and then she took those hearts to a nearby bridge and threw the hearts in the water. Wrought with grief, so cut out their hearts. That makes sense. Perfect sense. Perfect sense. The schoolhouse has been moved from where it was over to, like I said, Papillion, Nebraska. But they say that if you walk over the bridge at night, you can hear the thump, 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 thump of a heartbeat. And now the bridge is called Heartbeat Bridge. Apparently, there are some nights that you can actually see a ghost wandering around the bridge, mourning the students. and that she is unable to move on because of her grief. Um, Although people have claimed that they hear spooky things at the bridge, there is actually no historical event of this mass murder. There is nothing in the books unless they just didn't make record of it. So it's one of those that is a tall tale that we're not sure that actually happened. About an hour north of Omaha is Decatur, Nebraska. And a little north of Decatur and 3 miles south of Macy, Nebraska, which is in the Omaha Reservation, is Blackbird Hill. This location is on the National Registry, as this is a place where Chief Blackbird was buried, along with other Omaha chiefs. It was placed on the registry in 1979. It was also visited by Lewis and Clark, but it's the ghostly scream of a young lady that makes this place haunted. The story says that a young woman and a young man fell madly in love, but the guy wanted to go traveling before settling down, before getting married to her. So she said she'd wait for him, and he left, and she got word that he died in his travels. So grief-stricken, she moved on with her life and married another man, and they moved out to Blackbird Hill. One day she was outside tending to her garden, things like that, and was shocked to see her love come walking up the road toward her. He explained that he was in a shipwreck and that it took a long time for him to get home to her. But he managed to fight his way back and get back to her. They both realized that they were still madly in love, and she decided that she was going to leave her husband for him. That night, she decided to tell her husband. Well, he was not okay with this plan. He attacked her. Some say that he took a knife and stabbed her multiple times. Some say that he just dragged her. But he drug her from their house to the top of a cliff and threw themselves over. So him and her over the edge of the cliff. Well, the guy she loved, her true love, witnessed all this from a distance and said that she screamed the whole way down off the cliff. Now, it is said now that where the cabin was to the edge of the cliff, no plants grow. It's a completely barren path. And on October 17th is the best time to hear it, since that's approximately when it happened. But you can hear screams in the night. And some say that you can actually see her ghostly figure on the cliffs. But unfortunately, this is private property, so you really can't get there that easy. Talking about being on the Indian reservation, growing up in the area, I always heard about the deer woman. Supposedly, on that reservation, there is a big hill with a cave that goes into it. And the cave went through the hill. And local legend would say that if you walked in through the cave thinking of the animal you wanted to be, once you got to the other end, you'd be that animal. So they said that a woman started walking through and chickened out and turned back and came back out, but she is half transformed into a deer. So she had deer legs, and for a long time grew or lived in the area of Macy and Winnebago. And occasionally you'd see her out, but she'd always have like a long dress on, covering up her deer legs. Whether that's true or not, I'll leave that up to you. Another legend that's more fact than fiction uh, is that the Omaha Public Library has a scalp on file. In 1867, William Thomas was working for the Union Pacific Railroad and was out doing some repairs on the tracks. This was when he was attacked by some Cheyenne warriors. They grabbed him and scalped him. They left him for dead, and a while later he woke up and, catching his bearings and everything like that, he found his scalp. Well, he thought, okay, well, if I go back to town, they can reattach it. So he got back to town with his scalp, and they told him there was no way they could reattach it to his head. So instead of disposing of the scalp, he turned around and donated it to the library. Now, it wasn't that easy. He did move out to New York and sent it back to the library eventually. So he kept on it. He got it tanned and all that. But yeah, he eventually just sent it to the library and said, here you go. And to this day, it is still at the library. In Taylor Cemetery in Homer, Nebraska, sits Lottie's grave. Locals say that the grave is haunted and death will follow anyone who messes with her grave. There's so many variations of this story that poor Lottie. I mean, seriously, poor Lottie, that in death, people had to make up so many different things for her. Some say that she was murdered, while others say that she was a witch, and then some others said that she was ran over by a car. One that I heard when I was growing up near here is that she is a miserly old lady who was buried with all of her possessions. And growing up as a kid, I always sat there thinking, God, all your possessions put into your grave, I thought it was going to be enormous. Granted, I never went there because I didn't want to die. And they would say that people would go there and mess with her grave, or thieves would try to dig up the grave to steal her riches, and that anyone that did this would die mysteriously. The one that I heard was 3 kids went there, poured beer on her grave, urinated on her grave, things like that. I think knocked over her gravestone. And as they're driving down the road, all of a sudden their car just veered off into a tree. And all 3 guys died. Never substantiated this. I mean, it was just legend that you hear as a kid. This is what we heard in the 80s and 90s. The truth of the story is, Lottie Edwards died of heart degeneration in a hospital. She wasn't a rich lady. She wasn't a witch. She was just a mother and a grandmother that has been tormented in her death. So, I mean, sometimes we got to think about this. You know, in my research for Lottie, I saw who I believe a family member, like, going after this news story, this article where the person was talking about how it's haunted and she's a witch and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, hey, this is a family member. You know what? This is what happened. Stop spreading this crap. So, I mean, sometimes we got to think about fact and fiction. Are we messing with some poor old lady's grave? Or is she, in fact, a witch? So, I do apologize to Lottie Edwards for all the morons out there. The last legend is that of L Road near Nebraska City, about an hour south of Omaha. It's better known as Seven Sisters Road. Like with all legends, there's different variations. One involves a father, and the other one involves a brother. But besides that, most everything stays the same. Uh, Either way, they were all living out in the area, and there were seven sisters or daughters. And one night, the man snapped and murdered all seven girls. Well, they lived along this road that had seven hills. So, what else to do with the bodies than hang each of the bodies of the girls on the seven hills? Seven sisters, seven roads, or seven hills. Um, Once again, there is no notation saying that this actually happened, but local lore states that if you drive the road at night, your car might die or the lights will start flickering on and off. They also say that you can hear screams and moans from the sisters. And some also say that you catch glimpses of women in white on top of the hills. Now, from what I was reading, it's a 23-mile road. So, have fun with that. A little eerie, but that's okay. And there are so many other lores and myths and mysteries that happen in Nebraska. I just wanted to touch on a couple that were close to my area. Uh, but that's the whole thing is, with the true crime, how many things of the true crime, when they are so horrendous in 20, 30 years, will become a myth or a legend or an urban legend. You never know. It can develop that way. So, like I said, a lot of urban legends stems from something that was true, and it's just been distorted so much through the years that it becomes what it is. So, other than that, I hope you have a great New Year's. Don't get too wasted tonight. Be careful out there. And I will see you next year for more true crime. Peace.